Joined this evening on the Talkback by somebody I probably don't need to introduce, former Toledo Mayor Finkbeiner. Thank you very much for your time.
Good to be here, Sean.
You were headed to New York City for a program called No Labels. Tell people about what that is.
There's a number of men and women that have been involved in politics as many years as I have, and that's a lot of years, that are very disgusted, Sean, with the unwillingness of Republicans and Democrats to work together for the common good in Washington. It seems as if they are unwilling to compromise over issues of how do we begin to balance our budget, how do we start to dig ourselves out of the debt hole we're in, how do we pay for Medicare and Medicaid years down the road, Social Security. There's never a coming together of thoughtful, intelligent people, but rather just bickering, seemingly looking for a news highlight that night on the news that will make them look like they care. But most of us are reading, and I'm talking about Republicans and Democrats alike, we're reading a lot of that which we hear as just plain political, cheap talk without a focus upon how can we make America solve some of these pressing problems by working together the vast majority of the time.
So do you think this No Labels group can get that conversation maybe moving forward and maybe getting people to come together? I hope
so. The Tea Party showed obviously a lot of vigor and a lot of energy coming from virtually nowhere in 2010. These men and women are basically what you would call the centrists in both the Republican and Democratic parties. They're not on the extreme edges.
Do you think the extreme edges are hurting both parties?
It seems as if those who are on the extremes get on the news very quickly, into the news very quickly. It seems as if we're in almost a era where the more out on the left or out on the right you are, or the more shocking your position is, the more you're going to get a headline, which some politicians transfer in as extra votes back home. What we're going to try to do is get the American people to appreciate and support the Republicans and Democrats that still will stick to their most vigorous convictions about what is right for America, but on issues that are critical to America, they'll come together and they'll try to reach common ground on things that we know we have to do if we are going to balance our budget, dig ourselves out of the deep debt hole that we are in, pay for Social Security into the future. And those are going to take compromises from Republicans and Democrats alike, just as the issue that is before President Obama and the Congress this very moment.
And you think you can be a part of that? I mean, what can you bring to the table?
Well, I hope that here in Ohio, and I'll be part of a roughly 24-member delegation from Ohio, Ohio has been a very pivotal state in the last several presidential elections. And what I will be working to do, along with those other 23 initial No Labels people, is to put pressure on the governor, our United States senators, and our legislature in Ohio to stop the bickering and start working together on the most important issues that both the state and the federal government are concerned about. And then we'll continue to do that through 2011, try to get them onto the talk shows, shown working together. I'll close this by saying that two politicians who perhaps in many respects were very different, Tip O'Neill, the former Speaker of the House of Representatives from the Boston, Massachusetts area, and Ronald Reagan, the President from California, one a conservative, the other one a liberal. But after their 8 to 5 work days in Washington, the two would gather 2 or 3 times a week together, perhaps have a glass of something that was maybe stronger than is recommended, and they would see where they could find common ground on the most pressing problems of the 80s. It's time that we do that in America, because we're getting further behind in some of these pressing issue areas. And if we go another 4 or 8 years before we start dealing with the real problems of education and paying for some of the government programs we have and the work ethic of America, we get further behind. We may not be able to make up that ground and get caught up. And I think every American wants their children to have a better life than they did. And we got to get at that with some sound, sensible legislation.
All right, former Mayor Carty Finkbeiner, we appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that is your talk back.